Hello there, welcome everyone. Welcome to Apps and Assistive Technology to Support Executive Function. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, depending on where you're joining from. It might be early evening. I am Diana Petschauer. I'm a resident certified assistive technology professional, founder of the company AT for Education and Access for Employment. I am a faculty trainer at the Center on Technology and Disability, that's ctdinstitute.org, as well as AT&NH, which is a state program in New Hampshire. And as a consultant, I travel throughout New England daily, as well as nationally on a yearly basis to provide assistive technology consultations and assessments, as well as evaluations. So we work with students K through 12, post-secondary, as well as adults in the workplace, provide the evaluations, the reports, the recommendations, as well as the follow-up training. And I have 11 consultants who work for our company at this time who do the same thing and also work for other organizations. And we do live webinars such as this one, hands-on workshops, conferences across the country such as ATIA, FETC, Closing the Gap, and so forth. We do workshops and online learning as well. So glad you can join us this evening for the Apps and AT to Support Executive Function. We'll be looking at all age groups, meaning the apps and AT on iOS devices as well as Chrome apps and extensions. So we're going to be covering many platforms and devices this evening for planning, organization, scheduling and reminders, behavior regulation, memory and recall, task initiation, and some other options or features and apps and technologies to address those executive function needs. I'm going to be doing some live demonstrations for most of the presentation this afternoon, focusing on the iOS first with the built-in accessibility features as well as the apps. And then I will be moving on to the iPad, the Chromebook, and the laptop rather. So iPad and iPhone addressed first, and then we'll be moving on to those that would work on a laptop, Mac, or PC, as well as the Chromebook. Typically, I am presenting with my co-presenter, Stacy Driscoll, who is an executive function guru as well. You'll see her name listed on that executive function handout. The link was sent to you through email. It will be sent in a follow-up email, and we did put it into the chat also. If you want to click on that link at the beginning of the chat, you will get to the handout. This is the link here. If you click on the link or type this into your URL search bar and then hit enter, it is a Google Doc, which means we can add to it, which is great because as you know, assistive technology changes often. So as a Google Doc, it will save automatically into your Google Drive, if you're a Google user, and you'll be able to share it, view it, and see it as we update it. So you'll see Stacy's information on there as well. She is currently presenting this exact same workshop on the West Coast this afternoon, this evening, at the exact same time. She's doing it right now for the West Coast audience. And our contact information is at the end because I'm going to go right into live demonstrations. So if you'd like to connect with us on Twitter or Facebook, we have a lot of great information about assistive technology posted on there, as well as when our webinars and upcoming trainings are and where we're going to be next. And of course, if you'd like to contact us for assistive technology evaluations or consultation, feel free to reach out to us as well. So what I'm going to do is going to start sharing my screen. So I'm just going to switch over to my desktop to begin the live demonstration this afternoon. I'm just having a little bit of technical difficulties. We downloaded the conference controls earlier, but we'll try doing it one more time here, and hopefully we'll get you to see my screen.
You should be able to just minimize that.
Okay, let's see if I can. Can you see my desktop okay?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. Thank you for that feedback. So this is what your handout will look like. There's the information to contact us, and just so that you get an idea for what's on this handout, it is specifically the name of the app and developer, a hyperlink to get to the app. It addresses what it addresses in regards to the executive function, whether it works on iOS or Google, and then comments or features about that app. The link, if you click on it, will bring you right to that app that we are discussing, or that assistive technology or website or resource. either in the iOS App Store or the Chrome Web Store. I'm just going to scroll down. Hopefully I'm not making you dizzy so that you get a general idea that we start with the iOS and then we move on to Chrome. So you can see here we switch to Chrome, which I'll be doing with you as well. And then it goes down to talk about smartwatches. There's some great videos there and other resources. So you will have access to this handout. You should have access to it now and after the presentation for you to use and share. I certainly won't get to all of the apps on here, but we're going to focus on a few. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start with iOS, which means I'm going to share my iPad screen with you. I'm going to do that through AirPlay mirroring here. So I'm going to pull up my iPad screen for you to see. And what I want to start with is the built-in iOS accessibility features and apps before you even add any other apps from the App Store that you want to be aware of in your iOS devices. And this again includes your iPad, iPad mini, iPod Touch, your iPhone, iPad Pro, any of the iOS devices, any sizes, have these settings built in. Some of the settings you want to be aware of specifically in regards to executive function is the notifications. So on the left-hand side, you see notifications listed there, and this is my iPad screen in my settings. So I just tapped on the gray settings. And many times when we download a new app, we get that pop-up asking us if we want it to notify us and to keep us updated. And most of us are saying no, because we don't want those annoying pop-ups or notifications. But if you're going to be using an app to support executive function, you actually want those reminders and those notifications. They're going to be telling you when you need to be at an appointment or when you have an upcoming assignment or a task. So when you download the app, you want to be sure that you are accepting notifications. And then when you tap on notifications, you can go in here and specifically choose which app you're going to get notifications for. So if you don't do it when you first download it, you can change your mind. And you can also make sure that you're choosing what type of notifications you want to receive. So you can turn on the sounds, and you can see at the bottom the different alert styles that are available. Certainly if you hit no notifications, you're going to get none. You won't be alerted. Banners means it's going to pop up at the top of the screen and then go away automatically. That may work for certain individuals, but most of us who struggle with executive function, we need the alerts. We need to tap on alert and make sure that we have alert selected, because when we get this type of reminder, it requires an action before we can move on, which means we actually need to see it and tap on it or mark it as done, which is really important for those of us who need those reminders and need to be following those reminders or those alerts. So typically, if you're going to be using an app to support you for executive function, or your learners are going to be using one, you want to make sure that the notifications for that app are on and that they are either alert or banner, but most certainly alert would be the best option. There's also the built-in reminders on the iOS devices. So again, before adding any apps, you may consider using the built-in reminders or the built-in calendar on the iOS devices. They are excellent. I'm going to scroll just to search for mine here. So just the built-in reminders that are on the iOS devices are great. You can set them up as these little radio buttons or bullet list. Very quick and easy to do with the plus sign here. You can add a task. Maybe it's soccer, maybe it's a test, maybe it's a field trip. You can certainly check it off when it's done. And if we edit these, you can delete them. And you can specifically go into set the time for the reminder. So you can choose when you're going to get that reminder, what day, what time, if you're going to repeat it. So maybe this is a reminder that you need at the same time every day. It's very similar to the calendar. So you can repeat it daily, every day, every week, every 2 weeks, every month. And if you go into custom, this is where you can set a specific rule. So it will occur every day on, the first of the month, for example, because the first of the month isn't necessarily going to be the same day every month. So it's nice to be able to set that rule. And then you see you have priority here from 1 exclamation to 3. So in regards to the priority for your own purposes. it's a great tool to be able to use, built right in. And then there's also the calendar as mentioned, and I use my calendar certainly every day. Most of us do. You can specifically go to the day, the week, the month. You can get an outlook, which is nice to see what's coming up. And if you wanted to set a specific reminder, you can just hit the plus, and you would be able to set a new reminder, again, with the date and the time and so forth. And when you're going to receive those reminders, whether they're going to repeat, etc. So most of us do live by our calendars and reminders, whether we have a paper agenda. It's nice to have the digital one so that it follows you. Certainly you're going to get those reminders and those alerts on the go, whether it's on your phone. If you happen to use iOS devices, it's nice now that you can use the iWatch or the Apple Watch. And obviously there are certainly other types of smartwatches as well. The executive function matrix that we provided does let you know if these apps that we're talking about, if they sync with those smartwatches and which ones, which is really great. So certainly check out that information on the matrix. And as I'm talking about some of these today, I will mention that as well. Now also the built-in notes that are on the iOS devices, they didn't used to be as helpful as they are today. So if you've updated your iOS device, the notes look a little bit different, and they've added some new features, including the list feature, which is great. So on the bottom right, that little check mark there, you can add the radio buttons and add to your list. So if you need to have a specific list that you want to make and be able to check off. They've also added the option for handwriting notes, not just typing notes. You can see that you can choose the pencil or the highlighter, which is nice. You can choose the color. So if it's easier to handwrite or maybe to draw a picture, whatever it is that you need to do, that is best for you as the person who is keeping track of your lists and your notes. And you now also have the option in the bottom right, you can see, to take a picture and pull that in and share your notes. So they've gotten better in regards to the built-in notes as compared to what they used to be. They have a lot more features if you've updated your iOS. So now we are going to move specifically into some of the apps that you might be interested. One of them is called Due, D-U-E. All of the ones that I am pulling up this evening and this afternoon for you are on the apps matrix, your handout. So there's the icon at the top. It says Due with a little check mark. This is an app that I can tell you that I use on a daily basis. I have it on my phone. And it also connects to my smartwatch, my iWatch, my Apple Watch. I need this specific app that Stacy, my colleague, introduced me to because I'm a person who needs reminders for my reminders. So I use my built-in calendar. I get a reminder, but I'm a very busy professional. The reminder goes off. I get an email or a call, or I get busy doing something else, and I forget to do what my reminder told me to do. And I only got that reminder once. And so then I get frustrated later because I didn't do what my reminder told me to do. So I downloaded Due, and when I set a reminder in Due, it nags me. So I can set a reminder, and unless I mark it as done, it's going to continue to remind me. And I can set how often it's going to continue to remind me. It can be every minute. It can be every 5 minutes. And you can see here that you can change your settings and your preferences. So sometimes I just want some quick sets. Remind me at 9:30 or remind me at 12 when I may be typically having lunch, or remind me at 6:30 p.m. when I hope to be home, but some evenings I'm not. And then if your reminder goes off, I can say, you know what, remind me again in 10 minutes, or remind me in an hour or 3 hours, or this is something I can put off till tomorrow. So remember to go to an appointment. I can put that in there, and I would specifically, of course, name the appointment. And you can see that there's a snooze there, and when I click OK, then it's going to, specifically, I can put the time in here. So remind me today at, let's put 5:40 p.m. So let's turn it down a little. You can see it pop up later if we're still on the iPad, and then I'll click OK. So now I have that reminder set in there. What's really great, again, it's something that will continue to bug me until I get it done, and it comes to my watch. So if I don't have my phone on me or with me, and a lot of our students that we're working with, or adults, a lot of times they don't have their phone, or they forget to charge it, or it's in their backpack. If they're wearing the watch, it vibrates and the alert pops up on their screen. And they can either mark it as done, or they can do the same thing, remind me in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour, etc. So it's really great. It definitely helps me a lot. It helps a lot of my clients a lot, and it's a really great app for those of you who also need reminders for your reminders. The next one I'm going to show you is called FirstThen. So this is FirstThen Visual Schedule. Many of us working with students or adults are using the paper version of FirstThen. This is a great app to have if you need to be doing it in a digital format. So you can see they have a few examples here. I like in the settings that you can specifically edit and print a schedule, as well as share them. So it's always nice to have the paper backup. So if you can print it for any purposes, not only to take on the go, but if you happen to have something that happens to the iPad or it's not charged, you still have that backup. You can change the labels as well on those buttons. So many different settings in here to personalize it. And if we take a look at one of their examples, you can see on the bottom you have options. You could just have one showing on the page at a time that you would check off, or you can have two. So first this, then that you can also check off. You can have the entire series. You can have it set up similar to what you might be using in a classroom environment or a workplace environment, depending on the particular environment that you're in. So if you're using the envelope to put those icons in, and you can see it has a little virtual Velcro strip on the left-hand side there. And then also the other option of just moving from left to right, as in all done. You can set timers as well for each particular task and play it, which is nice. It's nice for them to get that little visual timer. Sometimes the concept of time doesn't mean very much to an individual when they're being timed. If you tell them they have 5 minutes, a visual timer is nice for them to have as well. Just so you're aware, when I am projecting my screen, I can't see the chat, but when I'm done projecting, I'm happy to answer questions, so feel free to type your questions into the chat as you have them, and I will address them after I'm no longer showing my screen. One of the apps that I want to show you does not reflect well while I'm using Air Server, so I took some screenshots of it for you, and it's called ChoiceWork. And with ChoiceWork specifically, you can set up various pages. You can set up schedules, like a school schedule or a nighttime schedule. You can set up pages for waiting and feelings. So there's schedules, there's feelings, and these are the boards that they give as examples, but you can certainly create a board from scratch or edit the boards that are available. So if we look at my school schedule, on the right-hand side you see a play button, and it would play this out loud either in the child's voice that comes with the app, or you can record your own voice or somebody else's voice, which is nice. You can also change those pictures. So you can see the second one is actually a photo and a video. So it doesn't have to be the icons from the app. You can personalize this even for an adult, for any task or activity. And you can set specific timers for each task. So you can see that when there is a timer, they get that visual countdown again for how long they have to hang up their coat, and then we would move that to all done. It would say, hang up my coat, all done. And if you choose to have a video demonstration, it will play that video for the individual to give the example of what they need to do. At the end of each sequence, you can see then they have a choice. So at the end of their particular sequence, then they can have a snack or do Legos. And this is all editable. So when you hit edit, the icons you can change by pulling in a new picture from their picture library, or you have the option to take a picture with the iPad. So you can personalize it, or your iPhone. You can personalize it to the individual. And you can see there are options for the waiting, and then they can wait for a certain amount of time. You can certainly customize that timer. And in the bottom right, you can see that there's some great social stories that go along with the waiting and why do we need to wait sometimes and things like that. So a great app, and again, on the first photo.
Diana?
Yes.
We have people that are wondering which app specifically you're speaking about.
This one is called ChoiceWork. Thank you for getting that question to me. And they are all listed on the handout as well. This one specifically is called ChoiceWork. So you can see that there are some examples with an adult waiting for a bus, an adult who's worried, as well as child examples. And up in the top left-hand side, you can see where you would be able to just start from scratch and create your own board if you don't want to edit the boards, the sample boards that this comes with. The next one I'm going to show you is called Popplets. And Popplet is great for some mind mapping. You're going to be brainstorming with your students before doing a paper or project. Some students like to do this as a project, as another way of representing their information and knowledge. So those of you who are using UDL, Universal Design for Learning, it is a great app for creating projects that they would share with the class or brainstorming ideas. So I just double tapped on my screen. Do it again, 1, 2, to create the popple. You can move these popples and you can make them large or small. You can also choose the color. And you can add text to these popples. You also have the option to handwrite. So if we wanted to put some specific pictures in here ourselves, or you can see the option there on the right to tap on photo, and then we could take a photo with the iPad, which is really great. Also note that if you can take a photo with the iPad, that means you can pull in pictures from your photo library. And you can pull in any pictures to your photo library from the internet just by searching and saving or by taking screenshots. So they don't have to be photos that you take in the classroom or out and about. They certainly can be photos from the internet that you can pull in as well. Now if you tap on a gray dot on the side of the popple, tapping too many of them at once, there we go. And I will actually shrink these down a little too so that you can see them visually. There we go. So we can move them. If you're going to do a mind map and start with one main idea and branch off from that, you can also minimize the entire screen and kind of take a step back to see what you have depending on how many popples you create and branch off from. You can set the background color. So you have many different options here, and when you're done creating your Poplet, you can export it. So you can email it as a PDF or a JPEG or save it as a JPEG. Certainly you can see you could view all of them at once or clear them all as well. There are many apps for mind mapping and brainstorming. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Inspiration, MindNode, a few others that are on that matrix, and just really depending on your learner, it's nice to have options. This one is called Tools for Students. There's Tool for Students 1 and Tools for Students 2. Tools for Students with the number 4 in the middle. Each one has 25 graphic organizers and 25 graphic organizers that you would be using in the classroom or the workplace environment. And Tools for Students 2 actually has a blank one where you can create your own, develop your own. And if you download both Tools for Students 1 and 2, you're going to have 50 total, of course, and they are 25 different graphic organizers in each app, so they don't repeat themselves. So you can see that there's main idea, KWL, cause and effect, compare and contrast, characters. There's quite a few here. There's some doubles on here because I've actually filled them out with students or during a presentation, so it saves them. So you can see now you have the digital version of a main idea graphic organizer. And many times when we have students who struggle with the writing process or organizing their thoughts, we give them a graphic organizer, typically a paper one. And then sometimes that paper graphic organizer still proves to be very difficult for them to fill in, especially if they struggle with handwriting, fine motor, or just where to begin. So being able to offer it in digital format certainly can be motivating, and offer accessibility features such as the built-in microphone on the iPad. So I could tap the microphone, speak my answer, I could also pull up other keyboards such as word prediction. There's a little bit of word prediction there you can see at the top of the typical iOS keyboard. But now what's available is the option to download third-party keyboards. You get them in the App Store just like an app. And when you've downloaded it, you're going to allow it in your keyboard section of your settings. And then when you want to use a different keyboard other than the one that is the built-in keyboard with the iPad, you just tap on the globe that's at the bottom left next to the microphone. So you install the keyboard first, and then when you want to use it, you tap on the globe. And now I could pull up an alternative keyboard. This one happens to be Swipe, which is very popular with a lot of students and adults, where I can swipe between the letters if I have a difficult time lifting my fingers between, or lifting my fingers up rather from the keyboard. I can swipe between the letters. I have my emojis there. And I have several keyboards that are downloaded. As far as alternative keyboards, there's another one that I really like called the Read and Write keyboard. This is the Read and Write for iPad by TextHelp. I like that it has the color-coded vowels. You can change the theme or you can turn that off. And what it's doing is it is, of course, predicting what I may be trying to type as I'm typing it based on phonetics and contextually. But I can hear these words said out loud first. So when we're using the typical word prediction and other keyboards, I may not know which word I want to put in unless I hear it first, especially if I struggle with spelling. So I can hear this word first. And it doesn't sound like you can hear my volume. I should make sure my volume is up here. There we go. And then I can choose to swipe or double tap to put it into my document. And this keyboard is going to pull up anytime the typical keyboard would pop up. So right now I happen to be in an app. It would work in many apps that I would be typing in. It would work on the internet, in my notes. Anytime this keyboard pops up, I can have an alternative keyboard. This one in particular also has a play button. So I can hear my words spoken out loud and listen for editing purposes. And then I also can have the dictionary and spell check if I need to. So
Diana, we have a question as to the name of this app.
This is called, for the keyboard that I just showed before I switched to this one, it was called Read and Write for iPad. That is the name of the keyboard. And I'm using it in the app called Tools for Students. So I still have Tools for Students, the app pulled up, which is the graphic organizer. And I'm showing you different keyboards that you can use for your students. So it's a combination of two apps that we're using here. And I'm just switching through some of my alternative keyboards to get back to my typical keyboard so that I can continue on. There we go. So just so that the audience is aware, we are still in Tools for Students. This is the graphic organizer app. And I was showing you all the accessibility features that you could use within this app or another, including Speak to Type, which is the built-in microphone on the iOS devices, or the option to download alternative keyboards. So you don't just have to use the keyboard that's built into the iPad anymore. So you can see if we were typing in details like they do with the main idea, they can type in 3 details from the story, and I like that they ask them to put the page number there as well. And then you have the option to link this to Google Drive. If you're a Google school, it's nice that you can save this to Google Drive to share with the teacher. You can certainly print this, so things that you do on the iPad, assignments and work that you do on the iPad are not stuck on the iPad. You can certainly print them. And you can link it to Dropbox or send it through email as well.
And what was the name of the black and yellow keyboard, Diana?
Keedogo Plus, Keedogo Plus. Great questions. Now I'm going out of Tools for Students, and I'm going to open up Notability.
Can you also tell us what was the name of the word predicting keyboard?
Yep, so the first one I showed was Read and Write for iPad. So it's Read and Write for iPad. That was with the color-coded vowels and word prediction that could be read out loud, as well as the text-to-speech. And then the second one was Key Dogo Plus. Thanks for those questions. Okay, so I'm going to open up Notability. Notability is a great option for a note-taking app for our students to struggle with note-taking, organizing thoughts, organizing important information. It has a lot of features to help students to be note-taking independently. Many of them have the accommodation of someone taking notes for them or getting a copy of the notes. So when we open up to Notability, I like the option for color coding my folders. I can color code my classes. I can set my classes to the schedule that I have. I can certainly move them as I need to. If I tap on my reading folder, my reading folder opens and I see reading at the top, so I know I'm in my reading folder. If I'm in biology class, I tap on my biology folder, it slides open, and it says biology at the top. It's very quick to add a folder. You just hit the plus on the top left, tap on Create Subject, and now I can create a new subject here. So if I was in my AbleNet class, I could tap on my AbleNet folder. It opens up and says AbleNet at the top. So we can also edit these folders by tapping on Edit on the top left. And then you see I could tap on the gear next to any of my folders. And this is where I can color code it. I could also change the theme. So I chose the colorful theme. There's some less colorful themes if you have individuals who prefer that. You could password protect it if you wanted to. And this is where you can delete it. So when the class is done for the semester, done for the year, etc., you can delete those folders. Okay, so if I'm in my AbleNet folder, my AbleNet class, and I want to take notes, I open my folder by tapping on it, and I want the notes to be in this folder. On the top right, what looks like a little pencil icon on a piece of paper has this nice blank sheet of notes, and also in the top right, what looks like a wrench. Those are my tools. And first what I do is choose my paper. I can put color behind it to make it stand out a little bit more. Some contrast, I can choose lines, larger lines or smaller lines. I can also choose graph paper if I happen to be in math class and want to be graphing along with the teacher. I'll keep it blank for demonstration purposes. And then what I do is I start the audio recording, that microphone at the top right. So now it's recording what I'm saying or the lecture from the teacher. I could choose the pencil, I can choose the thickness, the color, because most of the time we're not just using our finger, we're using the stylus, which is the pen or the tool that you can write on the iPad with. So I could be handwriting my notes. If this is math and I'm following along, I could certainly be doing that as the teacher is instructing. If I was graphing, I would have my graph paper up and I could be doing that. If the teacher says photosynthesis, I don't know how to spell that, but I know that's important. I want to get back to that later. I could also highlight it. If they're drawing a picture, I could certainly draw whatever the picture is that they're putting up on the board. I can type. So when I tap T here, I could type. Now remember, this is also where you could use the microphone to speak into, or you could hit the globe and pull up one of those alternative keyboards that you downloaded with word prediction.
Diana, I have a question. Yes. Someone's wondering if you've ever experienced issues with students using Notability or LiveScribe pens and not having permission to record from the instructor or from others in the class.
Yes, because I get asked that question every single time I show this. So yes, K through 12 as well as higher ed. Typically, what happens is the student needs to make sure that they have the accommodation of audio recorded lectures and note-taking support in their IEP or 504. If they're in college, they have it in their accommodation letters. And They are covered under the law, IDEA as well as 504. Their civil rights does cover them. It trumps school policy. I've been to mediation, I've been to due process, and they've always won. It does have to be in their IEP or 504 that they need this to access the curriculum or content, and they typically sign a contract that they're not going to share that audio recording that is strictly for learning, which of course is what they're using it for. They can't share it on Facebook, they can't share it with their friends, etc. And their parents would sign the contract as well if they are younger, of course, and going to be using it for homework. So yeah, that does come up often, and many times the student does have the accommodation of audio recorded lectures. They need it to go back to for processing, comprehension, access to the information. A lot of times not only learning disabilities and dyslexia or those struggling with executive function, but also students who have a difficult time with processing, taking notes at the same time, and listening to what's happening and being able to handwrite, especially if they struggle with spelling or fine motor, if they have a physical disability, certainly blind, low vision, things of that nature. Sometimes the paraprofessional or person who's taking notes is using this app to take notes for the student, and then they're able to go back and use it as well. So yep, great question. I do get that often, and the law has prevailed. If they absolutely need this to access curriculum and instruction for FAPE, they do have the permission to use it. The other thing that typically happens too is that they're asked to stop the recording if something happens, like if another student acts up or says something, or they get off topic, which a lot of teachers do. They start to tell a story, and they don't want that as part of the recording anyway if they're going to go back and use this for homework, so they stop the recording. And then you can also think about the teacher using this for the flipped classroom or for the extra support. So students that are going to the teacher and saying, I'm not sure how to do this math problem, can you help me? And the teacher turning on Notability, turning on the audio recording, step by step, showing them how to do the math problem, and then the student takes this home and is able to play it and watch it, which I'll show you, and practice it for homework. So it's a great teaching tool as well. On the top right, you can hit the plus sign. You can take a photo with the iPad. So the teacher just drew a huge graphic organizer of Greek mythology. There's no way they're going to copy that down, so take a photo, pull it in. Pull in a photo of a worksheet or a handout, and you can write on top of it, type on top of it, draw, etc. Let's see where some of my other photos are here. Let's just pull in this particular photo. So you can see when you add a photo here, you can move it. You could certainly, of course, then write on top of it. So if this was a worksheet or a handout and wanted to type on top of it or circle it, and this is actually how I create a lot of my tutorials for showing other people how to use other apps. I take pictures and screenshots, first do this, then touch that, and I do a nice tutorial for them to learn how to use an app. There is an eraser, so if you make a mistake, you can erase it, get rid of that mistake. And then there's also the option to pull in web clips and videos. There's just a lot that you can use with this particular app and do with this particular app for note taking. I'm going to stop the recording and then hit the arrow down next to that microphone. And now watch when I play back the recording. I'm going to tap on my note so you can see what happens. At the top right. So now if this is note that I'm following along, I could certainly be doing that as it is. If you're drawing a photo. So you can see that it's syncing the audio recording to the notes that I'm taking. I don't have to listen to the entire recording. I'm marking what's important to me, and I don't have to write down everything that was said. So I go to page 2 or page 5 or page 10, and then I tap on that part of the notes. The notes are going to be rewritten in front of me, and I'm going to hear what was said at that time. If I missed something, I can add to my notes. I can listen to it again for comprehension. It's a really great app. I encourage a lot of people who take my live conferences and workshops to use this app to record me to go back to later. And it's what I use professionally for professional development. When I'm attending a conference myself, I like to use Notability. Certainly if they give permission for you to record them in those situations, I always announce that I'm happy to have you record me for learning purposes. It's smart note taking. You can use the square with the arrow up and share these notes. You can save them to Google Drive or Dropbox. It's nice that you can send the recording to iTunes because many times the recording is going to take up a lot of space and you want to open up space on the iPad. So send the recording to iTunes and then you're able to delete it from here and open up space. And I've recorded for up to 4 or 5 hours. I've never had it stop. Sometimes I get that question as well. So it does record for a long time. You can surely print them, share them, etc. You can share your notes as PDF, or you can share them as a Notability file. So if the person on the other end has Notability, they'll be able to hear the audio recording and see everything that was done as you did it as well.
Can the audio recording be changed to text, Diana?
No. So this one doesn't transcribe. Not yet, I should say, because that would be wonderful. But there are other apps that do change handwritten text to type or transcribe the yeah, I actually haven't found one that transcribes audio to text yet. But there's assistive technology for that, but I haven't found the app for that yet. But maybe one of the audience members knows of one and can type that into the chat. But I do know of some that will transcribe the handwritten text to type text. And if you're not interested in using Notability or you want other options, because again, sometimes learners prefer other options, Audio Note's a great one, as well as the Microsoft Office OneNote. So some schools aren't using Google, they're using 365. And typically if that's the case, then you have the option to use OneNote, and the OneNote app is very similar to this, and you would have it for free. Just so that you're aware, there are other options for that. And the last one I want to show you on the iPad before we switch over to Chrome is called CanPlan. And CanPlan, C-A-N-P-L-A-N, there you go. The top icon there. Again, all of these are on your matrix. The CanPlan app is really great for sequencing of events and sequencing tasks. So if a student or individual needs to remember specific steps in a task, they can have the photo, the audio, or a video. This is great for tasks that you want to schedule throughout the day. And it's also great for, I have some older students who are using this. They're working now and they need to remember the routine at the workplace. So first punch in with your time card and then go and set the table or fold the napkins and get the dishes. This is a particular student who's working in a restaurant. So there's many different ways that you can do this. It might be tasks that they need to do in school, and you can set them up for them with audio and visual. So I'll just tap on one of their examples, the wash clothes. And you can see that you get the text. You can have it spoken aloud.
Wash clothes.
And now this is the text-to-speech that's built in, but you do have the option to record your own audio, so it could be an adult or the student saying it. And then when you start this, it's going to go through the sequence. You can see again the text is there, the audio and the picture, but this can also be a video. So it doesn't just have to be a still photo. So you get separate, place the laundry, get the detergent. Maybe some of your own kids need this or your spouse. Great app. They can have it on their phone. And you can see that they would get through. And if you want to create a new task, you can see that you could choose the photo, and then as you add steps, you can choose the photo or the audio. So you can record your own audio and then tap at the bottom to add what you want the text to say. So that's CanPlan, a really great one for sequencing of events. And you can see, oops, I just closed it there, but I wanted you to see that when you create a task, the third option there is to schedule the task. If you schedule the task, it's going to pop up on their screen, and you can set again to repeat. So if they are doing that task at the same time every day or every week, they get that pop-up on their phone, and when they tap on it, then CanPlan starts, and at that time, and it walks them through that sequence. So that's very handy to have as well. Okay, so I'm going to stop showing my iPad screen so that I can show you my laptop screen and move on to Chrome. So I'm currently in the Google Chrome browser. That's the little beach ball here in the bottom left. Yours won't have my face on it, of course. If you're not familiar with Chrome, it's just another way to get onto the Internet. It's like Internet Explorer or Firefox or Safari, but it's Chrome. It's Google Chrome. Anyone can have it for free on any device. In order to use the Chrome apps and extensions that I'm going to show you, you have to have the Chrome browser. These apps and extensions don't work in Safari or in Firefox or Internet Explorer. So you just have to download Chrome for free. Then once you're in Chrome, when you open up a new window, on the top left, you'll see this little icon where my mouse is here. At the top left, it's a little square of mini squares that says Apps. It's also at the very bottom of my screen, a square of mini squares, and that's your app launcher. So if I click on Apps, it brings me to my page of apps. If you happen to be doing this along with me, you're not going to see all these because you certainly don't have all these apps downloaded. Unless you're an avid Chrome user, then perhaps you might. And I can scroll through my pages of apps here with the arrow. And back, of course, you can see I have several downloaded. So this is my main page of apps. And in the top right of my screen, where my mouse is going now, you see these little icons in the top right. Those are my extensions. So you can download apps from the Chrome Web Store and extensions. An app shows up on your main page here, and it does its own thing, just like an app on a tablet. If I launch my Typing Club app, it's going to walk me through a Typing Club activity, and it does its own thing. It's an app. If I download extensions, they show up to the top right of my browser here, and they show up here because they affect the website that I'm on or the document that I'm in, and I'll demonstrate that as we go along so you can see that. So if I'm on an internet website and I launch an extension, it's going to affect the website I'm on. If I'm in a Google Doc, it's going to affect the Google Doc I'm in. So that's why it's an extension of what I'm doing. But you get them both in the same place. You get apps and extensions both here at the Chrome Web Store, the little beach ball and the beach bag. That should show up on your main app page. If you're using a Chromebook, you use a little magnifying glass in the bottom left to get to all of your apps, and you'll see it. If you don't see this icon for whatever reason, you simply just do a search for Chrome Web Store, and you'll get to this exact same place. So if you are following along and you don't see that icon, you can just type in Chrome Web Store. Again, you do have to be in the Chrome browser. From here, you can search by the feature or the topic. So if I needed a Chrome app or extension for mind mapping, there's several. I type in mind mapping. I see my extensions first, some themes there, and then my apps. MindOmo is a really great one. I'm going to show you that one as an example. And if you don't have it, you can see I already have it, so it's asking me to rate it. If you don't have it, you just simply click on the plus, add to Chrome, and then it's on your main apps page. 99% of these apps and extensions are free. It's why many schools are going Google and using those Chromebooks. These apps and extensions work on the Chromebooks, because they only run the Google Chrome browser. They work on a laptop. I'm on a laptop currently, a Windows one. I'm just in the Chrome browser on my laptop. Windows or PC or Mac, so any of the laptops that you're using will run the Chrome browser. Desktops as well, so if you're in a computer lab, they work on the Surface Pro and some of the Android tablets. These additional Chrome apps and extensions that I'm getting from the Chrome Web Store do not work on the iPad. So I call it everything but the iPad. The larger apps that you're familiar with, like Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Drive, all of those absolutely work on the iPad. But these are additional apps and extensions that you get from the Chrome Web Store. They don't work on the iPad, and that's because Apple and Google compete. They want you to use the Apple apps, of course. Okay? So these Chrome apps and extensions will work on everything else, and there's a lot here. It's risk-free. Most of them are free. They'll tell you if there's a cost associated. If you don't like it, you simply right-click and hit Remove from Chrome, and you have it deleted. So it's nice to check these out. One of the ones I want to show you in regards to extensions first, I'm going to go to a typical website where the student might be, is called Weiser. My mouse is hovered over it in the top right here. It looks like a little computer screen. It's free. When I hover over it, it says Weiser. This is a nice screen masking tool with a mouse spotlight. So a lot of times a learner has difficult time with keeping track of where they're reading, and they need not only to track where they're reading, but a nice color overlay to support their reading preferences. So you can see that you can change the colors here, different variations of the color combination. You can change the transparency, help keep them focused, and you can also change the size of that mouse spotlight. So certainly with keeping focused of where they're reading, that can be very helpful. And you just simply go up here to the blue button and turn that off when you want it to go back to typical. Another great extension is called Stay Focused. Many of us need this ourselves, certainly many of our students. This is the icon here for Stay Focused. Kind of looks like a little eyeball or just a circle within a circle. And with Stay Focused, you can specifically choose the amount of time that you're going to use it. You can choose the days, or you can just launch it on the go as you need it. The active hours, if there's going to be a reset time, and here's where you put those websites that you want to block. So for 10 minutes, I want to work on this paper and not be distracted. I'm going to block Facebook, I'm going to block my email, I'm going to block YouTube, my favorite video games, whatever it is that distracts me, I'm going to block for those 10 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, 5 minutes even, so that I can stay on task. And a lot of times those of us who struggle with executive function, we get frustrated with wasting time. We want to stay on task, and we know the things that distract us, but we're not always in control of them. If we have a tool to use to control this, especially as we start to get older, middle school, high school, college adults, it's a nice tool to be able to use to start with that self-regulation. And what can I do to stay focused and stay on task?
Diana, I have a couple of things. First off, what was the app called that you used before this one, or the app you've got up there now?
The one that I was just using for staying focused is called Stay Focused, and it's actually an extension, so the top right. The one before that I was showing is called Weiser, V-I-S-O-R.
Okay. And then I have another question. Someone mentioned they thought that the Chrome apps were being phased out, and after the beginning of the year they will only work on the Chrome operating system.
Yep, that is something that's been going back and forth between ITs as well, and it's a misunderstanding and a misconception. They're discontinuing certain features, but it's not going to get rid of the apps and extensions that you're using currently. And they will continue to work on various devices in the Chrome browser itself. And something actually that's a bonus that's coming is the Chromebooks. Some of the new Chromebooks coming out are touch screen, and they access the Google Play Store now. For those of you who may or may not be familiar, the Google Play Store is what you access on the Android devices, which means that the Chromebooks will soon be accessing the apps that are on Android devices, which is really great because there are some really great apps that we show on the iOS that also work on Android, like Voice Stream Reader for text-to-speech for books and handouts, and those are going to be able to be accessed from the Chromebook soon. So there's actually some positive news. But I can send you the link to the information if you want to email me privately afterwards. I'm happy to send you that because I've been following that. I have many groups that are talking back and forth about that, especially ITs in schools because so many schools are launching and going Google. So be assured that it's not the end of Google coming. It's not the end of the apps and extensions, but certainly good concern. So I'm going to show a couple more extensions and apps just because we're at the end of our webinar here, or getting to the end of it here. I want to show you Session Buddy, this blue and white square here. And with Session Buddy, I typically have 5, 6, up to 10 windows open at a time. I have my email, I have a presentation that I'm working on, Google Slides would be what the students are working on, or Google Doc, and I have things that are open that I want to get back to later, and then I have to shut down, go to my next meeting. For students, they have to shut down, go to the next class. Maybe they have to go home, and they've been using a Chromebook at school, and they're going to go home to their laptop or their desktop, and they want to be able to get back to all of those things they were doing. If it was a document or a presentation or a website that they were researching, how did they get back to everything that they were doing from one device to another? You can do that with Session Buddy. Again, it's free. Click on Session Buddy. It lists everything that I have open, whether it's a presentation, a website, etc. I saved a session with my Save button. I typically click the date, or type the date rather, and then something I was doing at the time. And then you see to the left it shows up as my session. I'll scroll down so you can see this is certainly a tool that I use often to keep track of my sessions. So now I have to shut down quickly, go home, go to the next class, log into Google Chrome, because again, these follow my account. And I click on my Session Buddy. There's all my sessions. I can click on what I was doing before and get right back to it. Some of the apps that can be really helpful, there's many other extensions. Again, these are all listed on your matrix because I certainly can't get to them all. There's some nice one-click visual timers here. There's Readability, which will clean up the reading page to get rid of distracting ads and videos while they're reading. And there's just such a great deal of helpful apps and extensions that are free. So that you get an idea for some of the apps, like for mind mapping and brainstorming, as I mentioned, MindOmo. Open up MindOmo here, one of the mind mapping apps. And it's nice that if you search for mind mapping in the Chrome Web Store, that you get 5 or 6 options, because our learners are all different. Their brains work differently. They learn differently. What works for one may not work for another. Universal design for learning, personalizing education. Let them explore. Let them try different ones. So you could have typical, they have brought in cartoon characters, but you could have just typical pictures from the internet. I like the simple toolbar on the left, the links, the pictures, etc. Very easy to use for students to create a mind map or a brainstorm before doing a paper or project. Connected Mind, another option, also free. And
Diana?
you have the, yes?
I've got a couple of questions. First, what is the name of the visual time extension you just showed?
One-click timer.
Okay. And then does Session Buddy save across devices as long as you're in your Google account?
That's correct. Yep. So if you're in Google Chrome and you shut down or get off that particular device and you log into your Google account on another device, yes, Session Buddy is there, as long as it is one of the devices that they work on. So the ones that I mentioned, any laptop, Mac or PC, Chromebook, Surface Pro, etc.
Okay, and do you have a Google app that you recommend to take photos of elementary school worksheets so the kids can write answers?
Yes, Snapverter. So the one here on my screen, Snapverter, when you download Snapverter, it's going to put a folder in your Google Drive called Snapverter, and you'll be able to drag PDF worksheets that you've scanned or that you've taken a picture of into there to do the OCR, optical character recognition. I believe that there is a link to Snapverter on the handout, but if there isn't, I will put it in there so that you can watch the video on how to do it. It is a Google Doc handout, so that's beautiful. I can put that in there for you. You will get that. If it's not already in there, it could already be in there because it should be. And when you open up a worksheet or handout with Snapverter, you will be using it in conjunction with the Read and Write toolbar. So Snapverter is by Read and Write, is by Text Help rather, which is the company that makes Read and Write. And Read and Write is the toolbar that then allows you to have that worksheet read out loud or type into it, use your voice, use word prediction, and so forth. So you would be using Snapverter in conjunction with this Read and Write toolbar, and then you'd be able to type into it, have it read out loud, use word prediction, speak into it. There we go, there's my voice input. And just because, there's our one-click timer. Nothing too horrible, it's not a foghorn. Just because we're getting those questions real quick, and we're running out of time for what I can show you. There's so much. This can be an all-day training. I do them all day, 3 hours, etc. On our website here, atfored.com, atfored.com, and that information's in your slides as well. On the Events and Training tab, if you click on our Events and Training tab, I have pre-recorded webinars as well, similar to the great ones that AbleNet offers. These are webinars that we've done previously. And in apps across the curriculum, I'm demonstrating a lot of the apps, and you can see that we've done the executive function one before as well. So you'll get the recording for this one as well. But if you need to go back and watch any of them so you can see me doing it, pause it, try it yourself, and things like that. So before we end the session, I want to make sure that I show you Google Keep, another app that's really great for online digital sticky notes. Remember, these follow your Google account, so as you create these sticky notes, they do follow you on devices. You get the reminders. Very quick and easy to take a new note. I like that you can get a reminder. You can invite people, so invite your teachers or your parents, color code them, add pictures for those who need a visual. Let's just make this one green. And then when you add that note, you can certainly edit it here or delete it as well. So you'll get the reminder on all devices, and you can get to this on all devices. Google Keep is actually also available on the iPad. And something I like to point out about the apps, especially like when you think of the ones for mind mapping and brainstorming, there are several. Lucid Chart for Education. This is another one that has the great graphic organizers and things like that in digital format. So a lot of times educators or professionals, they're just like, just like the iPad. There's just so much out there. There's so many apps. There's so many extensions. We're ATPs, we're professionals that get to play with these every day and use them and research them and recommend what's best. And some of you are just, you have limited time and you're like, how do I know what to get and what do I do? Well, a lot of times the students are really great at figuring out which ones work best for them as learners. And for mind mapping and brainstorming as an example, maybe the class is doing a mind map of the solar system. So you have 5 groups or 6 groups depending on how many students you have in the classroom. Group A is going to use Connected Mind. Group B is going to use Mindomo. Another group will use another one. They all create a mind map using a different app, and then they come back and present to the class what they've done. And they've shown 5 new tools to the class, and everyone can decide which one they want to use. So it's not something that you really need to take on yourself. It's not something that you need to worry about being the expert on necessarily, as long as you're exposing the students to the apps and extensions and introducing them to a few and letting them explore it, because they certainly are really great. As we know, most of them are really great with technology and need to be exploring which tools are going to work well for them. And happy to take any other questions for these last moments. You will be getting an evaluation form, so please be sure to fill that out when you receive it.
We had a couple of questions, Diana. One is asking if CanPlan share a schedule with someone else who has CanPlan?
CanPlan, yes. I believe I'm just going into the app myself to go to the settings. There's iCloud backup, there's notifications and achievements. I don't see it as a share. So I can't say for sure that you can or you can't because I haven't tried that, but I will research it for you if you want to follow up with me. But I'm not seeing it immediately in the settings.
Okay, and it looks like Ryan has signed off, but Ryan's question was, do any of the apps that feature a choice board allow an individual to make more than one choice at a time? For example, if an individual is choosing what they want for dinner, can they pick 3 food choices from a choice board, offering 10 possible choices?
Oh, that's interesting. So I'm thinking maybe he was referring to ChoiceWork, where you can create your own. And so if you don't use their template and you create your own template, I'm assuming that you would be able to create that choice yourself as long as you're creating your own board from scratch. All right, well, thank you everyone for attending this afternoon and this evening. Feel free to follow up with any questions and happy to address them afterwards, and hopefully we'll see you at the next webinar.